All right, so thank you all for joining us. We're just settling down now, so let everyone get sit in their seats. Again, I apologize for the delay in the start. We had some technical difficulties getting online. I think we have most issues worked out. So if anyone has trouble hearing me or whatnot, just let me know, please. You can in the chat, or you can come through the voice as well. So let's go ahead and we should have two presenters today. I know Aimee Stewart, who is the database management and the core director at Pennington, was also having trouble getting on, so hopefully she'll be joining us in a few minutes. But again, we're giving two presentations today jointly. Hers is more focused on REDCap itself and how to use it, where mine will be more focused on what we can do with REDCap. So again, they're joint presentations, so hopefully she'll be able to jump on. And again, this is the start of a seminar series, hopefully with less technical difficulties later on, where we're going to go through some introductory concept of biostatistics and how we work with other groups. So I think that we're going to have perhaps one more focused in cancer research next time, and then another one based on health literacy. So we're going to, Biostats is partnering up with the other groups in the CaTS organization. Again, CaTS is a large multi-center grant that is at several of the Louisiana institutions, including Pennington Biomedical Research Center, LSU Health Science Center New Orleans, Shreveport as well, and Tulane. So again, we bring in lots of different researchers together to kind of work together as a team. So what I'm going to have everyone, well, I'm going to go with my presentation first, and then again, if we have time, we'll get Aimee in and we'll get her to give her presentation. But again, my presentation is on once you have data in REDCap, or once you have the REDCap set up, the questions become, what can you do with it? So we're going to go over a couple things of how we can use REDCap. And again, this seminar series is designed just to be an overview to researchers, not to give you the expertise to go off and build your own REDCap. It's to start thinking about questions you may have, and we're going to, again, open it up to questions later on. But again, this is more of a, think of it as a brainstorming session where we're talking with people about possible ideas and whatnot. And you'll see as I go through my talk, it's again, just for generally overview. So again, as statisticians, we help with all levels of the design of a study. So we're going to be focusing on the yellow area, data collection, a little bit with analysis, but again, mostly data collection and a little bit of the analysis. But again, we can help on various levels of a project. So whether that be this talk or you have something else that you have in mind, we are open 30 minutes after this talk, as well as through email if you want to ever sit down and consult with a biostatistician. Okay, so the topics that I'm going to focus on today will just be about outliers and sources of variability, variable types, particularly the scale variable, because it's a real interesting example to kind of walk through, and randomization. And these are all things that we can either do through REDCap or that we can use data from REDCap to take out and use it different ways. So when we talk about outliers, you can imagine you already kind of have your data together. You use REDCap, you put together some data, and you have all these measurements. Well, just because they're in REDCap does not mean they're necessarily correct. There are going to be all types of errors, whether they be transposition errors, where someone was supposed to write maybe 45 and they wrote 54. You can have, again, errors that are, or values that seem like errors, but maybe not. So what we like to do as biostatisticians is help discover these outliers, as we call them. We, as biostatisticians, we never want to just say it's an outlier, remove it. We like to just flag it and say, hey, here's an unusual point, and we need to decide as a team whether this point is feasible or is it something that is really an error. So that's outliers. And again, you can have outliers in different formats. So here's an example of two continuous scales where, again, we see it mostly follows this trend right here along the red line. But again, you have this one strange dot. Again, this may be a true value and we need to keep it in there, but it also may be a transpose error or something else. So we like to flag values from REDCap because REDCap gives us nice access to kind of the export we'll do from there. And we can flag these values and say, hey, let's go look at this a little further. So this is an easy example, but you have also other examples where maybe you have some subsampling going on. Maybe you have different kind of locations where, again, you know that the range of data is going to be different at each location. So we see that this may be, again, at sample 4, this is considered an outlier right here. But if you were in sample 5, maybe it's not an outlier. It's well within its bounds. So so again, we do advanced methodologies where it's not just, let's throw all the points together and let's pick, are there any outliers? We can fine tune it into the subsamples. Again, into whether there's a particular outlier for this sample or is it overall an outlier. We also can export data and look at trend analyses. So where we kind of are confident that the mean is maybe this red line right here, and then we'll have a confidence band where we think maybe, let's just say 95% of the data should be falling. And we can see that, oh, this one subject is falling outside that band. Again, this doesn't mean that this data point is wrong. We're just saying we can flag these things and say, hey, something is unusual happening here. Is this something of concern? Maybe it is, maybe it is not. But the question just becomes that this one looks different than the others. So this is about basically a subject that is falling outside the line. But you can even see how this subject, once they dip down, they stay pretty consistent. So again, just looking at this one particular example, I would say, again, maybe this drop is the outlier aspect of it, but all their values are very consistent. Whereas once I show you the next plot, let's take this as, again, we have lots of values through time. So again, lots of repeated measures, whether they be maybe every hour, maybe every day, but you can see weird things where we have spikes like this. So you can see that, again, it's going pretty normal, and then it jumps up and then jumps back down. So we can identify those where, again, they're within the band of that. We think 95% of the time it's pretty good data, but for the within subject characteristics, that's an unusual point. Why do they jump up so high there and jump so low there? Again, this is all caveated with, maybe this is looking at glucose, and maybe they ate something right there. So of course, you're going to see a spike in someone's glucose if they just ate something. But we can detect these outliers and flag them from the REDCap data, and then say, let's look at it in more detail. So now we're going to get into variable types. So I like talking about variable types because when we work with REDCap, there's a whole bunch of different options. You can have text boxes. You can have sliding bar scales. You can have multiple choice answers. You can have yes/no questions. And a scale is a good example of all the things that could go for one particular question. So that's why I'm going to highlight this. So a scale variable usually has no uniform kind of definition. So I like to consider it more a variable that has a numeric value that can be ordered. So again, my little example down here is, maybe your BMI. So again, it can be ordered into, these classifications. Or, how happy are you? We can clearly see, we can order it in terms of happiness, but there's no universal. Happiness is always on a 0 to 10 scale or something like that. This is a little bit different than a categorical variable, where a categorical variable is usually, we're going to define it as it has multiple choice answers, and usually for the categorical variables that we can do, we don't want to consider, you can consider multiple choices. So that's called, in REDCap, that's called a radio button, where you can select, oh, I want to set this and that and that. So that's always a choice. But usually with the categorical responses, in general, they cannot necessarily be ordered. So I think hair color is a good example of, you know, just, oh, you can select any of these, but there's no ordering that we have to it. And again, we're not going to focus on the categorical variables necessarily. We really want to focus on these subjective scale variables. So the thing to remember about these subjective scale variables is, again, there's no one correct response with these kind of variables. It's going to depend on how the subjects interpret the question. So again, this is going to be more for, you know, subjective data. And this could be from a survey, yes, but it also could be from something like an image analysis. We can get a concrete number, but maybe they're trying to quantify something else that's not as numeric as, you know, what percent of this cell is illuminated, you know, where they're just trying to say, do we think it has high illumination or low illumination? So something that's a little more subjective. So when you're creating the REDCap question for this variable, we want to think of these three things of how we can ask the question, what type of choices can they have, and how do we retain the most information? And we're going to go through each of those really fast. So here is a way to kind of scale. So if we read this question, during last week, how happy were you? So you could have the all those choices. Again, not happy at all, only a little happy. So you can see it scaled, basically a Likert scale. You can think of it as a 1 to 5. We could also have a sliding bar. So with the sliding bar, you have you allow more flexibility. So instead of giving 5 choices, we're going to give, maybe you can place it 100 different ways on that bar. Maybe you're 55 instead of a 50. So that retained a lot of the information. And again, the first one was just a text box. This is always an option. I will say it's rather limited trying to use a text box later. Sorry, one moment. Trying to let someone else in. Sorry about that. So again, we're going to continue. So again, a scale variable is a variable, again, that has these kind of choices. So then, again, you have a text box, you have a multiple choice Likert, and you have a sliding scale. These are all three different. They all three have different interpretations, even though they're trying to get the same idea of the question. So all three of these are possible in REDCap. Okay. So let's talk about the first method, the text box. So subject can put whatever they want in the text box. So you give them the freedom of having, you know, whatever they want in there. However, you gave them the freedom of putting whatever they wanted in there. So they could have nonsensical answers. They could have answers you really have to dive into individually and check to see if it's working or not. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about the, again, technical difficulties. We were sharing on our end. So again, we just kind of were walking through. There was, we had some visualizations, but there was nothing, you know, to talk about. We talked about outliers a little bit and how one point can be an outlier. We talked about box and whisker, how in a subject you can have an outlier. And then we talked about both a subject being an outlier as a whole and an individual point within a subject being an outlier. Okay, and now we've gotten into the variable types, the scale. We talked about categorical variables, what we're not going to focus on here. And then we're going to subjective scale variables. Again, the example I've walked through so far is just the how happy are you. We're going to go through 3 different types of REDCap responses: a text box, a multiple choice, and a slider. And then we were talking about text boxes. So with the text box, we have, again, the limitation of they can put whatever they want. So it makes it very hard to analyze sometimes. So while it is nice to have that freedom, we usually limit text boxes as much as we can because we want as much clean data as possible. And texts are very hard to pull out when you have a subjective scale variable. Okay. The next one is multiple choice. So the nice thing about the multiple choice kind of question is you limit it to one answer. So you've made them select just one answer. So again, they could be between two categories and they have to click, they can't click, oh, I'm 50% here and 50% there. They have to click on the one answer. So we really kind of pigeonhole them into this one kind of response. But again, it is nice in terms of the analysis that we can do, because again, if everyone has distinct choices, then we can look and see what's the percent in this group and the percent in this one. And something that we'll talk about later is we'd rather have more data and more categories now, because we can combine it later. So let's say that in these top three, only 5% of the entire sample picks any of these top three. Well, we can combine those into one kind of question when we do the analysis later. Yes, we have to change around the interpretation slightly, because it's not just this one question, it's all three, but we can do comparisons of using all three. When if we were to combine them from the beginning, we might have had some differences. Maybe this would have been 50% of the data if you would have combined it from the very beginning, and then you would have not known whether were they not happy at all, were they happy half the time. So we want as much granular data as possible, but again, trying to make it easy for the person going through the survey to take it. And the last one is a slider. So again, a slider, you can move anywhere up and down this line. So you can, again, create categories where we can say, oh, if someone's above 33% on the slider, they're going to get not happy at all. They're going to get maybe in the top 33, they're going to be happy all the time. So those are all different ways that we can use this to kind of get there. So generally, this is the more freeing option of the three I've shown you, because again, you allow them to move the slider anywhere they want, and we can categorize it later. In all, for the scale variables, there's no one best method. Again, it's all part of what has been validated before. And again, we're not going to get into validation right now, but we want to make sure we have questions that are validated or have that we've gone over before. Generally, we prefer the continuous variables because we can, again, always transfer them into categories. And text boxes are great for certain responses, but not everything. And the last thing I want to go over briefly is the randomization. Again, randomization can be done in REDCap. So I'm going to go over a couple different randomization methods that can be done through REDCap. So once you upload your randomization scheme, the REDCap will take care of everything. So you can do what's called a simple randomization, where again, we just have, let's say 10 subjects, and we will click on a button and we'll say randomize this subject, and they'll get either treatment or control. And again, you can have as many different kind of treatment assignments as you want, but my examples will always just have treatment and control. So it's going to put it in any order. So you may have all your controls first, or all your treatments first, or a combination. So simple randomization doesn't care about how the randomization, it's not going to be evenly between treatments and controls. It's just going to be whatever random sequence comes out. It is usually better for small and moderate samples, because with larger samples, sometimes you have some bias or some other factors influencing the randomization, so we want to adjust for that. So simple is okay for relatively small sample sizes. Another one that REDCap can do is called block randomization. So block randomization keeps balance throughout the study. So what it's doing there is we're going to say we have blocks of size 2. So every 2 subjects, we want to make sure we have balance between treatment and control. So again, if the first one is treatment, because my blocks are size 2, the next one has to be control. And then it starts over. So the third one can be whatever we want. So again, it's going to randomly decide treatment or control. In this case, it does control. And then the next one's going to be obviously treatment. You can have blocks of different sizes. So I can make a block of size 4. So I'd say every 4 subjects, make sure you're balanced equally between treatment and control. So you can have different block sizes. And again, this keeps balance throughout the study. So if, let's say, for instance, you were unsure of the amount of subjects you were going to have at the end of the study, whether that be, maybe you didn't know whether they're going to be 6 or 12, then you probably want to go with a block randomization, because if you did it with a simple randomization, maybe all your controls were in the first 6 or so. So now you have a whole bunch of controls and very few treatments, whereas the block randomization keeps it even. So that's an advantage of the block randomization. It also removes bias due to some like seasonal effects or whatnot. The last one is called stratified randomization. And stratified randomization, again, can be done in REDCap. What we have for stratified randomization is we have randomization in groups. So again, in my example, I'm doing gender, male and female. And I said that within the males, I want to have 6 treatment and 6 within the males, I want to have equal numbers of treatment and controls, and within the females. So it's going to keep it balanced. So it doesn't care that 2 controls are next to each other. It just cares that this male got a treatment, so then we're going to try to match it later with a male that got a control. So it keeps balance within these subgroups. And this is nice in the sense of when we think that there's a covariate that is categorical in nature, let's say maybe gender or some maybe BMI class or something else, we can make sure we have equal numbers in both groups to eliminate any bias that may come from this. So then to end my share of the talk, I just wanted to say that, again, when you talk about REDCap design, you want to always speak with the REDCap administrator at your site. So again, every institution has a different REDCap administrator, and you can email them. You can also speak with a statistician who usually can also get you in touch, or will at least talk to the REDCap administrator. We want to always look at the literature and see what was done in the past. And again, when we're creating questions, we always want to kind of test them out with our peers before ending or sending out the survey. Okay, so I'm going to try to share my screen with our other presenter. Just give me one moment. All right.
Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you. So sorry about the issues, anybody, but I think Amy's going to take control now for a little bit.
Yes, that would be great. So just kind of introduce myself. I'm Aimee Stewart. I've been working at Pennington in clinical data management for just over 20 years now. In that time here, we've run hundreds of studies through our department and collected data in all different ways. Our main method of data collection does involve us writing custom applications, like we write them for the web and Windows, and we use a SQL Server backend. But we are using REDCap quite frequently for certain kinds of data collection. We got REDCap here at Pennington in 2012. I personally really got involved and started administering it in 2019. I'm going to kind of go through in a little bit and show y'all exactly some projects, ideas that we've had, and what we're using. But I want to do this, show this quick video that Vanderbilt built to give an introduction to REDCap. I tried to kind of recreate it myself, but really they do such a good job of summarizing everything. It was written, it was done in 2015. So if you are using REDCap now, it's probably going to be a review, but sometimes they just kind of hit on all these different things that can be done. The screens are going to be slightly different because they do introduce new features all the time. But I'd like to just play it for y'all so kind of give a brief idea of, if you're not familiar with REDCap, what it can do for you. So Robbie, just give me a nod if it plays correctly.
You are sharing your screen.
Okay, good. Let's see.
REDCap is a tool for building online surveys and databases. No technical knowledge or prior experience is needed. Instructional text and prompts provide guidance at every step. REDCap projects are web pages used to enter data. They can be used from anywhere, at any time, and on any device having internet access. REDCap is designed to be neutral. It can capture almost any type of data and for any purpose. A REDCap project is simply a web page used for data entry. This is the typical layout. Data entry happens through the project menu's data collection section. Data entry can be either while logged into REDCap or not. Here, we're using REDCap as a database, meaning we are entering data while logged in as a project user. In contrast, using REDCap for a survey allows people to see the web pages and enter data without logging in. Surveys are explored in separate videos. No matter how data is entered, built-in prompts provide guidance. Intuitive data entry ensures that people without much computer experience can quickly learn REDCap. The software is most frequently used for clinical and research purposes, but it's designed to support any type of work, from quality control studies to animal studies, administrative tracking projects, event registrations, or feedback surveys. Customizing the questions on these web pages to match your needs is part of project development. That development process can involve advanced features to improve your data collection strategy, such as data validation, branching logic, calculated fields, matrix ranking, and slider scales. Users can quickly and easily build their data collection instruments. The web page is used to collect data. Instruments can be built online in real time through the online designer, or built offline through a spreadsheet called the data dictionary. Both project modification methods can be used interchangeably throughout the life of a project. These tools and the project development process are explored in separate videos. Here, we used the online designer to add a new field for a phone number. Let's revisit the data entry process to see our new field and continue entering some practice data. Some projects use only one data collection instrument to enter all their data. Others, like this example, use multiple instruments. This approach creates more flexibility because you can more tightly control access to separate pages. The online designer is a great tool for making changes to these data entry web pages. REDCap's other built-in tools help you control how people interact with the project. These tools, also called applications, help manage the project and your data. More than a dozen applications are available. The most basic applications are displayed here. You have complete control over your project. Nobody knows your work as well as you do, so explore and test all the features to determine which ones best meet your needs. Running reports is one of the most important features to test. Reports are searches. They are repeatable, real-time queries of your dataset. Reports can be run at any time. Basic analysis and statistics are available. For more robust analysis, data can be downloaded or exported in multiple formats. REDCap creates all the files you'll need for analysis in statistical packages. Project development focuses on testing which tools and questions match your needs. That development process is streamlined by the Project Setup checklist. This page guides building and testing a project. Once a project is fully tested and ready to begin collecting real data, it is moved to production mode. Additional data protections are put in place to help prevent accidental data loss. So users have a safety net to protect their data, even if their projects continue to change and grow. Created in 2004 at Vanderbilt University, the software is now supported by a global consortium of nonprofit organizations. But each REDCap system is independent. Every consortium partner site personalizes their system, so always consult your organization's REDCap administrator for guidance about your system.
I hope that was informative for every time I kind of listen to REDCap and look at some of these other things, I see more and more. I kind of wanted to talk about like how Pennington has used REDCap for different things. You know, as she mentioned, we'll do survey studies, and we'll create a study a survey, and we will either send it out maybe by a public link. So they'll go and post it on social media or something like that. But sometimes we also get a survey that they want to target a certain group of people. Recently, we got a list of WIC participants, and we wanted to send them a specific survey. And so we were able to get their phone numbers, and we texted it to them with, an information to be able to get a gift card at the end of it. We also do those study databases or projects. In those projects, we're having kind of as demonstrated in that video, study staff data entry form. So they can enter information, tracking information, or checklists. So you'll see that we also do consent. So it might be a consent checklist where they are checking off to say that they reviewed it. In those study databases, you can also have surveys that are filled out by the participants, whether they're going to be on site and you're, setting up a computer for them to sit there and enter their data. You can email it to them, or again, you can do it by text. We send alerts out to participants to remind them. So let's say they have a daily, we do daily food diaries and such like that, or a daily exercise diary, and we'll send them an alert via email or text to remind them to do that survey. We also send out motivation. So based off of their data that they've entered, let's say they're doing a great job walking, and so we say, hey, they're doing a great job, or maybe they haven't. So then our message will be targeted and say, hey, try to do a little bit better. So you can kind of get REDCap to text and alert your participants to try to keep them on track with your programs. The REDCap also, and these are fairly new to REDCap, all these alerts and notifications. You can alert study staff that, something hasn't been filled in or not completed, or that something was filled in and that they need to go do something now. We're using REDCap for longitudinal studies, so a study that has multiple events. So at each visit, maybe they're collecting different data entry forms. So, we do a lot of that where inside of REDCap, we're setting up events and arms so that we can say, which data is going to be collected for which participant. We're doing e-consents, randomization. We've, in the past couple of years, we've really gotten into API import and export. While I really like REDCap for collecting data directly from a participant, it's not ideal for calculations. And so a lot of what we're doing is some questionnaires, some psychological questionnaires that have fairly complex scoring. So we're using the API import-export tool utility and REDCap to push the data over into our clinical database to do scoring. And Robbie has helped us a lot with it. They're helping us make sure that our scoring is good. But it's nice because you're not doing it on paper anymore. We used to do these questionnaires at Pennington. Participants would sit in the lobby and fill them out on paper, and then we would have to get that paper double data entered. And so many times, the participant skipped a question, or they decided to, Robbie showed the example of they could pick 5 choices. Well, they may circle something in the middle and be like, well, it's kind of more in the middle. So, by making them use REDCap, you're forcing them into, you have to make a decision based off of what we give you. So we're getting better data by using REDCap and kind of making the participants answer in a more structured format rather than kind of writing out to the side. Dates are a big thing. We needed an actual date, and they'll be like, they'll just put like the month and year, and then we can't get it into the system because of it. So REDCap has really helped clean up a lot of our questionnaire type forms. We're also using REDCap for multi-center trials. So while I told y'all that Pennington does a lot of data, we have a lot of custom applications. We're doing trials with other sites that don't have that setup. And so we're using REDCap for them to enter even more data than we're entering. And then we're merging the data sets after. We're REDCap is really good in all the granular security that it provides, because, you know, one site doesn't need to see another person's site, and we can really break it down. You can break it all the way down to instruments, who can enter an instrument, and actually who can then export that instrument, and who can, you can go flag all of your PHI data, and, you know, so some people can't see it and some people can. So the security gets really granular, and it's great for multi-center trials. We've also used REDCap for administrative projects. The clinic query tracking system we developed for cleaning of medical record charts. So when medical records charts go through and there's a problem, they're able to, you know, flag it in the query system. And there's a, again, with the alert system and everything, it'll alert different people that, okay, this needs to go be taken care of. We just do surveys internally for the kitchen. You know, when somebody's finished with a study, they want to send out a survey to be like, you know, how was the food? Did you like it? You know, because there's something we can do better. Human resources too. You know, just with COVID recently, we sent out several surveys to just check on our employees to say, how are y'all doing? You know, let us know. We developed a tracking system inside of REDCap for our lab to track COVID testing. Of course, we do event signups. And recently we did the annual promotion and tenure review, and that was it turned into kind of a big project, but it allowed, you know, again, it's allowing somebody to go enter data and then put it into a workflow. So there's just really a lot of different things that you can do with REDCap. So I just kind of want to go through, like, that's what we're doing with it. I want to emphasize what they did say, and I think Robbie kind of said it too. Each REDCap system is independent, and each organization gets to decide on how they set it up. So it's very different across organizations when you kind of go talk to them. There are many, many different settings inside of REDCap. So, you know, while I think that there's so much information on REDCap that you can go and Google and search. Sometimes when you read something, it might not be something that you can do on your system. So it's very important that you kind of talk to your administrator, see what, you know, what they're at, and while you're looking. But there are just tons of videos, even, you know, from Vanderbilt and from other organizations that we like. You know, contact us if you have a question, or, you know, we can tell you, like, oh, we know this video out there, or this little tutorial is great, and we can help you as well. Get ideas, you know, sit down and kind of talk through about how we would do it. We have somebody on staff that's all they do is develop in REDCap. So she is very versatile in it. She really knows a lot about it, and gets into all of the embedding and branching and reporting different ways. So please reach out to us, and we can help you out.
All right. Well, thank you, Aimee.
Sure.
That was a great overview. Again, I think it also just shows that REDCap is more than just a survey collection instrument. It can do so many things, but like Aimee was saying, it's also site specific. So you got to work with your REDCap administrator to see what they're willing or can do. Again, we saw a lot of things that the Pennington REDCap can do. And again, those things do not happen overnight. Those take a while to put together. As far as we have this understanding of, again, work with the REDCap administrator, work with the statistician, work as a team to figure out what you need together.
Yeah, and work with us. We can help. You know, we have, if you are a LCATS funded project, you know, we're here to help you. We can even develop it on our end, and then give you that data dictionary or such to bring to your own organization to import in.
Yeah. So I'd like to open it up to questions. Aimee, if that's all you had. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So then again, I'll take any questions either from the room in here or from the chat. Again, just talking about REDCap in general, or just wanting to meet up. Again, I'll send out a, I had a survey link that we can fill out. Again, it's just 5 questions at the end, just about this, but I'll worry about that later. Questions, anyone from the room first? All right, then I'll take questions from chat. Anyone who has a question from chat, I can unmute you and then let you ask the question.
I think Jennifer has her hand raised. I can unmute her.
I think she had a hand raised earlier.
Oh, earlier. Okay.
All right. Well, again, I thank everyone. Oh, sorry.
I don't have a question. I guess I have a statement. I am supervisor, REDCap administrator here for LSU Health Science Center. I'm Takita Ferguson out of School of Public Health, and we've had REDCap here for since 2011, and we have over 2,000 projects. No, over 1,000 projects in REDCap on the Health Sciences Center campus. About 2,000 users that have accounts. So, as Aimee said, that that they can develop things. Of course, we can here, but you having basically LSU HSC account here, you can get a REDCap project sent. So, or set up, and basically you can send an email to redcap@lsuhsc.edu or go onto the website and you can get one started.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ferguson. Sorry for not bringing you up earlier. Yeah, so again, there's also a contact person at Tulane. Again, I think you can just email the REDCap at Tulane, I believe, is the general email, and that will be directed to the Tulane person as well. So again, you have to work with your own institution, because again, we each have different instances of REDCap. So to figure out who your person is and then contact them. Okay. All right, any other comments or questions then before we close today? Yes, question in the back.
I hope I didn't miss it, but say a little bit about how you can interface REDCap databases with some other software packages like SAS, Excel, SPSS.
Yeah. So I didn't get into that, but that's a great a question of how does REDCap interface with the various statistical packages or whatnot. So you can export. REDCap is very good at exporting in different formats. So you could export in Excel. You could export to SAS directly. You could export to SPSS. So it has these direct functionalities where it's not just a file of Excel columns and numbers. You can export it, again, those are just a few of the ways. So it really can be tailored, and you can download it 2 different ways. Maybe the first time you want to look at it through Excel, that's fine. You could also download it at the end through SAS, because that's what your statisticians are going to use. So it gives us the functionality of easy access to data. And again, that's mostly behind the scenes in terms of once we have the database set up, then you can work with the statistician or yourself if you want to analyze the data to pull out whatever way is most convenient for you. So again, REDCap does a lot of stuff behind the scenes that make it very easy. So we talk about it in terms of how to set it up or what kind of things we can do, but it's really doing a lot of things also, connecting different kind of reports, or again, having it spit out the data differently, all in one easy to use kind of format, because again, it lets you decide what best way to export the data that you have. Oh. All right, well, we're going to close the meeting down from the team standpoint. So thank you all for joining. I'll send out a survey. Thank you all. Bye.
Thanks, Robbie.